Hey, Leafs fam, hockey world, what is up? This is the Leafs Convo. I am Norman James, so glad to be with you. Big question, how is your Tavares watch going? Have you joined ours? Catch up with our Leafs Convo Tavares watch playlist when you can. Right now, a special edition of the podcast for you, courtesy of Mike in Buffalo, our good friend, who chats with his friend Russ Cohen of Sirius XM's Hockey Prospect Radio about how the Leafs did at the draft in Dallas. Enjoy.
We are pleased to be joined by my buddy Russ Cohen, who is a co-host, of Sirius XM's Hockey Prospect Radio. Must listen for people who are interested in the prospects of the NHL that will play in the NHL and that play in junior hockey or in Europe or anywhere. Hi, Russ.
Hey, Mike. How are you?
Pretty good. We both were in Dallas for the NHL draft and focusing specifically on the Maple Leafs. The Leafs had the 25th overall pick, traded down, got an extra third, and at number 29 drafted defenseman Rasmus Sandin of the Sioux Greyhounds. What were your thoughts on that pick and on Sandin as a prospect?
Yeah, I think it's a good pick. I mean, I almost had Sandin in the first round at times, and then I had him sort of moving around, and, I might have, I had someone like Jet Wu hired, just as an example, and McIsaac, but for what they got here, they got a very good defenseman. I mean, he's really fast. He has a pro body. I mean, he's 190 pounds, so he's really already a guy that you don't have to worry about how much stronger he's going to get. He trails the play well. He's got very smooth stick and puck control, a very smooth shot. So there's not a lot that you have to fix mechanics-wise. He is a good defender. I know his GM said very, very, very good. I'm just going to say he's a good defender, and we'll see to what degree of good that is when he gets to the next level. But I think this is a good pick here, and they were able to, trade down, I forget, 2 slots?
They traded down four slots to get an extra third-round pick. So
right. So I think that was an astute move, and if that other pick happens to turn out, then people will say, wow, that was really great. I'm sure Sandin will turn out. So either way, it's good. The caveat on this one is I kind of wonder if they had their eye on Niels Lundqvist, who the Rangers took the spot ahead of him. I mean, he had been rising since the Five Nations, and so I kind of think that a little bit.
Well, I think that there were a number of players that may have been on their list that would have been acceptable. I mean, when they were at 25, Joey Veleno was still on the list. And I know that the Leafs, and if you look at their list, and I've been saying forever that their focus was going to be on defense and centers in terms of organizational depth. And in the first 6 picks, they took 2 centers and 4 defensemen. So I think that they definitely did that. But Sandin was an acceptable pick, and I've been saying, there is a bent on familiarity here with their picks. Sandin is somebody, with Dubas being part of the management of the Sioux until he joined the Leafs in 2014. The GM in the Sioux is close to Dubas. I think it was his former assistant. He knows the scouting people, the player development people. So he had the inside dope on Sandin, and that probably was a determining factor.
Yeah, no question. I mean, the easy rip is to say that on familiarity, but sometimes it is good to go with your strength. Listen, I mean, we're taught in the business world, and when I was in the business world, to know what's going on in your own backyard. They do. They went with it. Like that's a normal business practice. So I can't kill them for familiarity.
Now, a couple of years ago, the Leafs, I think it was the 2016 draft in Buffalo, they took a number of overagers, and this seems to be now a trend. And they did it with their second-round pick, Sean Durzi. I
have brought that up. I want to point that out, that I have brought that up the last few years, because the reason it's a trend is because some of these guys can get to the AHL quicker, can get through the AHL quicker. They're less of a project. If you find the right guys, it's a good move.
Right, and it was not only Durzi, but Mac Hollowell, their 4th-round pick, and a Swede that they traded into the 6th round, Pontus Holmberg. So they drafted 3 19-year-olds, and now I know that Hollowell and actually Sandin have the option based on I know with Sandin, it was him being a loan from the SHL. He could play in the SHL. He could play in junior. He could play with the Marlies, and so could Hollowell. So, I mean, I don't know what is the best option for Sandin. That'll be up to Kyle Dubas. But I would think that either playing back in the Sioux another year or going back to Sweden would probably be the most likely course of action for him.
Yeah, I think it'll be either or. I couldn't guarantee which is going to happen either. As far as Jersey, I mean, look, he's a really good offensive player. He is a good skater. Is a great skater? No, I don't think he's a great skater. But, he can certainly get a breakaway occasionally. There's some real good things to like there. But I also think he has the look of a guy who, if you break him down, is sort of more mature physically than some of the guys he's playing against. So I think you have to really see what he looks like when he gets to the next level. And that's the only thing I would say about that pick is that part I'm a little uncertain about. What I am certain about, or at least a little more certain about, is the guy picked right after him, Kalen Addison, I like better. Kalen Addison, for everything that he does offensively, which is great, people were sort of finding things to, find wrong with him. Maybe not great defensively. I think he's good, but he knows he has to get better. But he's not, he's not solid defensively. He's just good. He's average. But the idea is, some of the other things with Kalen Addison is I think he could really benefit from better conditioning. And I think then people will start to see a notch up in his defensive game and basically the way he covers and things like that. Because I know it's easy to look, hey, he was a minus 18 and all those other things and say he's defensively deficient. And maybe ultimately he could be a little bit, but I didn't see that much of that. But I do see a lot of upside in the kid. So, that's the thing is when you take someone like Jersey, there isn't as much upside left because he's going to be 20 in October. So you look at that and you say, all right, well, he could go right to the AHL, so that's good. And then you see what happens after that.
Yeah, I mean, he could stay with Owen Sound for another year as an overager, and then I don't know how many young defensemen they want to put into the Marlies right now. Now, final thing, you could see a difference in philosophy based on a couple things with Mark Hunter and now Dubas. Hunter, over the last couple of years, took a number of, I would say, behemoth defensemen, Emily Rassinen, who's going to play in the KHL, Nicholas Mattinen, Keaton Middleton, who were not offered entry-level deals by the Leafs. This year, size was not a big consideration. Sandin is, he's not small. He's 5'11", 190. Jersey's not massively big. Their third-round pick, and I will not try the pronunciation. I know he's called SDA as his initials, so we'll go with that. He's 5'9" and 150 pounds. Hollowell is not big either. So it seemed that the Leafs went more towards speed, skill, and didn't consider the size as a big factor.
No, they didn't. But I also hear some other media people sort of falling back to thinking, well, most teams aren't going to want that 6'6" guy anymore. And that's not true either. It's just the Leafs didn't do that this time. And I don't think it has anything to do with the failings of the other guys. If you have a 6'6" guy who skates as well as some of the other defensemen on your team and he's that much bigger than him, you'll take the 6'6" guy every time. So it's not a matter of the 5'10" or 5'11" guy being better than a 6'6" guy if they're the same at everything else. Like, it's not like a running back where they could sort of squeak through the offensive line because they're really small. I don't think there's a real advantage to the smaller defenseman other than, hey, you could draft a smaller defenseman if everything is great, and that's why you're getting the guy because most likely it's the offense.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Russ. I appreciate the analysis on the Leafs.
Anytime, Mike.
Hey, you can reach Russ on Twitter at Sportsology and Mike at Mike in Buffalo. Our Tavares Watch content is humming along on the YouTube page. Go to the playlist section. Everything is organized for you there. If you have any Leafs questions for us, use hashtag AskMike on Twitter, Facebook, and in the YouTube comments section when you ask them. We'll get your questions answered in the next Mike's Mailbag segment, which is coming soon. The best way to find out when, subscribe to this podcast. Do it now. I'm Norman James. Thanks for listening to the Leafs Convo.